grandparents and stocking up in my piggy bank. Well, good morning and welcome to Timberlake Castle Rock. My name is Pastor Jeff, and Pastor Angie and Jared are off this week and away, and so they asked me if I would like to come down, actually, from the Duval campus where I am the campus pastor at. So it's so good to see you guys. If you didn't know, Timberlake Church is one church in multiple locations here in Castle Rock, in Duval, in Issaquah, Woodinville, and then also in Redmond, and then also, as a lot of you guys probably know, up in the Olympia area too. We are getting that campus going, and it'll be officially launched this upcoming year, so super excited for that. Well, hey, as we kick off our December series, the most wonderful time of the year, how many of you would say it's the most wonderful time of the year for you? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, you are an interactive bunch. I love that. Thank you so much. My campus, I'm like, come on, raise your hands. You can do it this morning. At least go get some coffee and then come back and raise your hands. So I'm glad you're raising your hands. Thank you for that. I got to tell you, we are excited to be here. My oldest daughter is the most excited to be here, I think, though. When I told her that we were coming down to Castle Rock, she screamed in excitement. When I heard that we were joining with the Rock Church in Castle Rock for Timberlake together, we were on our way down to Portland. That's where I grew up. My wife and I were. And so we stopped by and saw the building. I saw Katie and came inside, and my daughters played on the playground outside, and she loved it. So when she heard that we were coming today, she's like, we get to go to the church with a playground at it. And so that was awesome for her. So we are very excited to be here. Here's a picture of my family. My wife, well, it'll be up there in just a moment probably. There we are. This was last year, so my daughters are a little bit bigger now. They're going to be 4 and 2 in this upcoming February, and then we have another one due in just about, 3-4 weeks, and so, no, probably about 5 weeks now, in January. And so I'm telling my wife to hold off until after Christmas, but before the New Year's, so we at least get that tax break, right? Isn't that good? Yeah, it's really smart. She wants to wait till January. I'm like, let's just get that tax break. It's not going to make that much of a difference between 2 weeks, so it's good. So that is our family. We've been married for 8.5 years. We met when we were in high school. I know I still look like I'm in high school, but that was quite a few years ago now, about 12 years ago. Actually, this last Friday night, we had our Christmas tree lighting event in Duval, and I was talking to a gentleman. He's like, hey, so are you the pastor at the church? And I was like, yes. He's like, are you even 30 yet? And I said, thanks for pointing that out. I will be in just a few months. So I am almost 30 years old, and it's pretty awesome. And how many of you would say, though, that you have kids and have felt pressures with kids? Anybody? Yeah, everyone, right? How many of you would say just the time of year you would feel pressure? Anybody? Yeah, the time of year, Christmas time. Thanksgiving is now over, and that is good. But now we have the pressure of getting the right gift, putting up the Christmas lights. How many of you have your Christmas lights up? All right. How many of you have already seen the burnt-out bulbs of the Christmas lights you put up? Yes. Isn't that the worst? I put ours up, and I checked all of them and replaced 15 before I put them up, and now it's like, of course, the very peaks. There's like 2 burnt out. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And I just feel the pressure of my neighbors judging me because they're probably looking at my Christmas lights. No, they probably don't care at all. But I feel like they're judging me, right? That's all I care about. How about getting that perfect gift? Anyone is stressed a little bit about like what kind of gift you're going to get for that perfect person in your life? Yeah. I know around this time of year we feel a little more pressure. Maybe it's in our waistline, right? Who's busted out their bigger jeans? Who has like seasonal jeans that they bust out for this time of year? Yeah, after Thanksgiving you eat a lot, and maybe it's Christmas time now and you're going to eat even more. But maybe there's pressure in the jeans. But I think if we're honest too, not just pressure in our pants, but pressure to get that perfect gift. Pressure really to have your house clean as family comes into town for Christmas. That's probably the worst, especially when you have little ones. It's like, come on, just know that our house is not going to be perfect. It just is not. As much as we can shove stuff in bins everywhere, it's not. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, though, is really how to thrive in high-pressure situations. As this holiday season is upon us, as Christmas is really coming up in just a few weeks, we all feel the pressure, don't we? Don't we all feel the pressure of, okay, we have to perform, we have to do. And so how can we thrive in that and not let the pressure really get the best of us? Because it's so easy to do. I was on staff in my last church down in the West Linn area. It's about 20 minutes south of Portland for about 10 years. And then Pastor Ben, our lead pastor at Timberlake, asked if I wanted to come up and lead our campus up there. But while I was down there in West Linn, we were in Oregon, so I'm a Duck fan. Any Duck fans in the room? Okay, any Husky fans? All right. Congratulations, you won the Pac-12 this year. Ducks, hopefully we hire a good coach, and we are back at it in just a few years. That's what I'm excited for. But so I'm a Duck fan, and we would come up to the Seattle area for our summer camps for our youth. And we thought it'd be fun. We'd go like a day on Lake Washington. We'd go to Wow Waves for a day. We'd go downtown Seattle, like Pike Place, and we'd stay at the UW campus. And so we stayed at UW at McMahon dorm. Anyone ever been to McMahon dorm? We'll have a picture of it up there in just a moment for you. This dorm here, as you can see, it's quite large. And in the summertime, it's usually the freshman dorm, and they rent it out to groups who want to come in and stay there. So we had our youth group come in there and stay there. We had about 125 high school kids come in. And as you can know, that 125 high school kids compared to college freshmen is not a huge difference in rowdiness, right? So you think. So what we thought is it would be fun. I was leading a group of sophomore guys. We thought it'd be fun to play tennis ball dodgeball. Anyone ever play tennis ball dodgeball? Isn't that a great idea? It's just the greatest idea. Yeah, so we were playing inside of a quad, and we thought, okay, there's not as much space inside of a quad here. We're going to kill each other with these tennis balls. So we moved it out into the hallway. And so I took a tennis ball, and I went and threw it. Now, how many of you ever seen a fire sprinkler before? Anyone ever seen a fire sprinkler before? Yeah. If you haven't, there's a picture of what they look like. Now, instead of coming out of the ceiling and just being this far out, they thought it'd be fun in the dorms, I don't know why, to have them stick out probably about 1.5 feet out of the wall, and then with that on the end with no cage around it. So I'm throwing a tennis ball, and I shear the thing completely off. Now, if you don't know how much pressure can build up behind these things, it is insane. It is nuts how much pressure can shoot water out of this. Now, I didn't know until I saw it happening firsthand. And I looked at all the guys, and I'm like, guys, we don't know who threw that tennis ball. And they're all start laughing, and they're like, we know exactly who threw that tennis ball. I was like, no, we have no idea who threw that tennis ball. Because within 15 minutes, we were on the 6th floor, and there was water flooding all the way to the basement. They evacuated all of us. The paramedics came, of course, because the fire alarms went off. The fire trucks came. The police came, and they questioned us afterwards, and they're like, well, the good news is that your church has insurance, and that you're all under 18, and you're all going to be okay. And I raised my hand, and I was like, what if you're 20? And they're like, the officer looked at me, he's like, you're 20? And I was like, come on! And so that's why I grew the facial hair for you this morning a little bit, or at least I didn't shave for the last few days, so you'd think I was at least 20. No, but he was like, I'm glad your church has insurance. So $240,000 later of insurance money and 3 months of the dorm being closed down, I realized what pressure looked like built up behind one of these things. Yeah, luckily I didn't have to pay for it. Thank you, Jesus. But I learned the pressure that can really come out of these. And that stuck with me to this day, really of what pressure can really look like in our life. How many of you would say this morning that you're feeling some pressure? Yeah. I don't know if you face times of stress or pressure in your life, but I think if you've lived for just a few years, you've probably faced some. I think if we're all honest, we all have today. Yeah. The Apostle Paul wrote about 2/3 of the New Testament, of the letters. And so today he wrote 2 letters to the church in Corinth. He wrote 1 Corinthians as really a correction letter. He went and he traveled there. And this church in Corinth was a very corrupt church. It was a major commerce area, and so there was a lot of people who were traveling through, so there was a lot of prostitution going on. There was a lot of promiscuity, and there was also a lot of just filth and dirt going on in the church of Corinth at the time. Paul traveled through his first time. He let them know who Jesus was. People were saved. They found this new way of life and this new way of grace, and so they changed, and they were following Jesus. But then when Paul left, some false teachers came in, and we're saying, well, you can still do this. You can still go out and do this and this and this. And so Paul wrote this letter really in 1 Corinthians to really correct them. And then to really say, hey, here's how you should be living. Here's what it looks like to really live as a believer and how to really live for Jesus. And then he wrote another letter, 2 Corinthians, where we're going to be looking at today, of really a letter to really comfort and to really let them know, hey, I do love you and I do care about you. Because as he wrote this letter of correction, it came down a little harsh. Because that's who Paul is. He just wrote it, and he's like, you got to deal with it. This is how you're living. This is the way that you should be living. And so he realized, though, afterwards, hey, you know what? There's false teachers coming in trying to pull you back away, and I got to write you a letter to let you know how much I care about you and to really comfort you. And so today, that's where we're going to pick up. Today, we're going to look at 2 Corinthians chapter 1, and we're going to be reading through it. We're going to pick up starting in verses 8 through 11, and let's read it together on the screen behind me. It says, we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure. You can underline great pressure there to realize that Paul was going through some great pressure, if you want to, in your outline this morning, if you haven't already taken it out. far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death, but this happened that we might not rely on ourselves. You can underline, not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. And then it goes on to finish and say, on him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us, as you may help us by your prayers. Then many will give thanks on our behalf for the gracious favor granted us in answer to the prayers of many. The prayers of many. So once again, let me ask you, how many of you ever felt pressure in your life? The Apostle Paul, he knew pressure. He knew pressure more than probably anyone else who's ever lived on this earth. Pressure really to write to these churches, to be there for them. People did a study recently. It was actually the Harvard group who did a study a few years ago to find out how much pressure was actually put on Paul's life. And they actually looked at it and said, if you could actually measure how much pressure was on his life, it is far beyond what any human should be able to actually endure. If you've never heard about the Apostle Paul, let me tell you a little bit. The Apostle Paul was beaten, stoned, flogged, thrown in jail, all because he wanted for people to know who Jesus was. Now, I actually learned about pressure another time when I worked at Les Schwab in high school for a summer. Anyone work at Les Schwab here or a tire competitor? Okay, sweet. There's a guy at my campus who's a manager at Discount Tire, so I always have to give him crap. But I worked at Les Schwab for a summer, threw away all the old batteries and all the old tires because I was only 16 and I wasn't old enough to work on the tire machines. But as I was getting ready to leave there, they taught me the tire machines to really learn the pressure. They let me know that if you put too much pressure in, the tire would explode and really hurt somebody. They let me know if you put too little pressure in, that if you put it back on the car, that if you drive, it's not going to be good, as I found out this morning. We woke up, we're staying down at the Red Lion, and woke up this morning, and one of our tires was really low pressure. Luckily, there's a Shell gas station about a block down, and we got some air in it, and hopefully our tire is not flat when we leave here today. We'll find out. But I learned about pressure. I also learned about Gojo. Anyone know what Gojo is? To clean all the dirt and the filth off of yourself. Oh my goodness. I did not know you could get that dirty from tires and from old batteries. It is disgusting. I also learned how much free popcorn you can eat. It's delicious, right? If you've never been to Les Schwab, they have the free popcorn in there. I ate free popcorn on probably every single break. When I quit, my manager was probably so excited that he got to save money on popcorn again. But I got to learn really the pressure. And on tires, we have pressure ratings on tires, don't we? On the side of my tire, it says 44 PSI, don't inflate past that. Why do I know that? Because I looked at it this morning. But I think the same way for all of us as humans, we have pressure ratings on our lives. I think if we're honest, we have pressure ratings of how much can I really handle? How much can I really take on in this season, in this time? How much can I bear? And Paul had a pressure rating on his life. In a world that's so busy, especially during this Christmas season, I think we rarely stop to really check our pressure. Maybe this morning you need to check your pressure and think, where am I at right now? Am I deflated? Do I need some encouragement? Or am I living in so much stress that I have so much pressure that I'm about ready to explode? And what's going to come out isn't going to be pretty for everyone to see around me. So today, that's what I want to look at. What we know about high-pressure situations. If you follow along in your notes, number 1 this morning, pressure reveals the depth of our character. Pressure really reveals the depth of our character. 2 Corinthians 1:8 says this, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the trouble we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself." I've heard character defined as who you are when no one is looking. Who you are when no one is looking. Let me ask you this. If you're over at Fred Meyer in Longview, and the person in front of you drops a $100 bill and no one else around you sees them drop that $100 bill except for you, you pick it up and you have the opportunity to either return it back to them or think, sweet, there's $100 towards Christmas, right? What are you going to do? I think how you answer that question defines really your character, defines who you really are on the inside. And what I know about pressure is it can really magnify that. It can really reveal our character and who we really are. It's a combination of traits and qualities really built up in a person. Think of your life as a sponge. As a sponge. Everything that we interact with, every person, every situation really pours into us. And in times of pressure, What happens with a sponge is everything comes out that's been put into it. Maybe let me ask you this too this morning. What are you allowing to be put into your life? What are you really allowing to be put into your life? Are you spending time in the Word? Are you spending time with God? What are you listening to on the radio? Because whatever's coming in right now is going to help alleviate that pressure, and whatever comes when pressure comes is going to come out, and that's going to reveal really your character of what's really inside of you. What I've learned in times of pressure is that it really shows who I am. Winston Churchill said, "Mountains inspire leaders, but valleys mature them." Let me say it one more time. Mountains inspire leaders, but valleys mature them. Where are you at today? Maybe you're in a valley. Maybe you're in that time of maturing, and you're feeling a lot of pressure. What I do know is that pressure really can reveal our character. As was mentioned here by Paul, it says that he was under a lot of pressure. Now, we don't read the account here of what he was writing about, but if you read in the book of Acts, you read about all of the times where Paul was traveling around Asia. If you read through chapters 13 through 23 in the book of Acts, you see his travels, his journeys around here, and you really see what he was going through. Like I mentioned earlier, the times of when he was beaten, when he was stoned. Now, we are in Washington, and I'm not talking about the kind of stone where you smoke marijuana, where rocks were thrown at him until he was almost dead. This is the kind of stone I'm talking about. Insane. Where he was flogged and thrown in jail. Now, jails don't look like they look today. Or they didn't look like they looked today back then. It was a hole in the ground, and where you went to the bathroom was in that same hole. It was gross. And Paul spent years there. I know personally when I'm going through times of pressure, it really reveals who I am, though. I bought a new MacBook this last Black Friday. Any Mac fans in the room? Okay, a few of us. All right, any PC fans in the room? All right, now, I live like 15 minutes away from Microsoft Central. So like 3/4 of our campus works in Microsoft. So whenever I bust out my iPad or my MacBook, they all like shake their head at me. But I bought a MacBook because I love MacBooks. It's my third one now, and I was backing up my old one, and I was transferring the files to my new one. And this is something you do when you get a new computer, right? And so as I was transferring it, everything was good, and it transferred all over, and so I turned my computer down, and then I went to go back up my new computer so that in case it crashed, I would have a backup of my new computer. And as I was doing this, everything just froze and shut off. And I was like, oh no, because I'd already deleted a lot of stuff off my old computer. So I was like, what am I going to do? My whole life is on my computer. All my pictures, all of my notes, everything I've ever preached, everything that's ever been a part of my life is on my computer, and it just crashed, and I have no idea if it's there. Can I tell you there's a time of stress in my life? I freaked out for a minute. I pressed the button, turned it back on, and luckily everything powered back up and everything was there. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, right? But it was pressure, and it really revealed what was going on in my life. Now, as I told this to my campus, they're all like, well, if you just would have bought a PC, everything would have been great, right? Number 2, pressure reveals the source of our strength. The source of our strength. Let me tell you this morning. This might be hard for some of us to hear, but God can't fill us when we're full of ourselves. Let me say that again. God can't fill us when we're full of ourselves. Pressure reveals the source of our strength. 2 Corinthians 1:9 says this, "Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on who? Ourselves, but on God who raised the dead." The Apostle Paul realized where his strength came from. He realized where his strength came from. Let me ask you this morning, where is your strength coming from? Is it coming from God, or is it coming from another person? Is it coming from a substance? Where is your strength that you feel like is coming from? There was this guy named Abraham in the Old Testament. You can read about him. He's now the father of many nations, nation of Israel. And God made him a promise before to go to a new land, and that he was going to give him many descendants. But as he was traveling, he had his wife Sarah along with him. And as they went to a new place, as you read, you'll read that he made some mistakes. But what's interesting is what is written about him in Romans 4:17. It says, this is what Scripture means when God told him, "I have made you the father of many nations." This happened because Abraham believed in the God who brings the dead back to life and who creates new things out of nothing. Now think about that for a minute. This is what's said about Abraham. that he believed in the God who brings the dead back to life and who created new things out of nothing. Did you catch that? It shows us where Abraham got his strength from. But let me tell you this morning, maybe you're like, hey, I feel like I get my strength from Jesus, but I still fail every once in a while. Is that okay? Well, let me tell you about Abraham like I was mentioning a minute ago. In Genesis chapter 12, as he entered into this first nation that he was walking to on his way to the promised land of where God was calling him to be for him, he entered in and the king was like, hey, who are you and who's this lady traveling with you? And he said, well, I'm Abraham and this is my sister, not my wife, my sister Sarah. And the king said, okay, well, I'm going to take her to be my wife. And why did Abraham do this? Because he was afraid for his own life. So he said, well, if I get in good with the king, then he won't kill me. So I'm going to tell the king that she's my sister. And so the king took his wife to be his own. And then God came and spoke to him in a dream and said, what are you doing? You're sleeping with another man's wife. And so he went back to Abraham and said, why didn't you tell me who this really was? Why'd you say that she was your sister and not your wife? And he said, because I was afraid for my own life. Guys in the room, this gives us hope that if we don't ever do this, that we will, for one, never be beaten by our wives, and for two, that we are in better shape than Abraham. But let me tell you this. This didn't just happen once. This happened twice. If you read again in Genesis chapter 20, he does the same thing again. Now, this gives me hope that when it says, and what's written about Abraham there, and then also in Hebrews 11, that he's a man of great faith and of great character, but then I read this and I'm like, what? What happened? This gives me hope that as many times as I screw up, that I can still find my source of strength in Jesus. That maybe it's waning today, but it can be brought back again. This gives me hope. Pressure reveals the source of our strength. David, before he faced the giant Goliath, it says this in 1 Samuel 17:37. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. David knew where the source of his strength came from. He said, God delivered me from this. It wasn't anything that I did. Let me ask you again today, where is the source of your strength coming from? When trials and pressures come, where do you run? The third thing, pressure reveals the measure of our resolve. The measure of our resolve. 2 Corinthians 1:10 says this, he has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us. Do you notice how many times he say he's delivered us, he's going to deliver us again, and then he's going to continue to deliver us? I don't know what you're going through today, but I do know that we serve a God who wants to continue to deliver us over and over and over again when we put our hope and our trust in him. I like to think of resolve as how many times can I get beaten down and then have God pick me back up? Who's maybe a boxer, a boxing watcher or MMA watcher in the room? Anyone? Okay. Who watched the Pacquiao Mayweather fight a few years back? Yeah, I watched that one. I was hoping for a number 2. That would have been awesome. But I enjoy watching boxing sometimes because you see someone get beaten down and then they get right back up. And I think our resolve is really how many times can I get beaten down? How much pressure can I be under and get really back up? See, let me say this. Don't allow what's been done to you to become bigger than what Jesus has done for you. Don't allow what's been done to you to become bigger than what Jesus has done for you, because that can happen so easy, especially around this Christmas time. To lose our mindset of really what is important, right? Pressures come, and we get so caught up. But what is really important? Paul realized, you know what? All this pressure is over my life right now, but what is really important is that Jesus has delivered me, he will deliver me again, and he will continue to deliver me because his mindset was set on God. Let me ask you this morning, what is your mindset set on? I remember when I was in my early 20s, I was a youth pastor, like I mentioned in my last church. We had just bought our first house, so I was a few $100,000 into good debt, right? I don't know if there's any debt that's good. It just made me feel horrible, but it was good debt at this point. And we've been married for a few years, and we were talking about having kids. So I had about 150 kids between the middle school and high school at this point. And we were in debt now in a new house and married and thinking about having kids. And I was in my early 20s. Now, a lot of people around my age were maybe just graduating college, or they're living at home in their parents' basement. or they were working a part-time job at Starbucks. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's what a lot of my friends were doing. And I was in a very different stage of life. I had a lot of pressure put on me at a very young age. Now, am I saying, oh, feel bad for me? No, not at all. It's something that I put on myself. But it was good, but I still felt the pressure. And sometimes we have good things that come into our life that still create pressure. And I was like, okay, I have all this stuff going on. I need to get some term life insurance. I need to be smart. I need to figure out that if I die, my wife will be taken care of and that everything will be taken care of around me. So we had this lady come over, and she did a stress test on me, took my blood pressure, and she said, sir, you have really high blood pressure. I said, what are you talking about? I'm like in my early 20s. I'm in good shape. And she said, no, you have really high blood pressure to the point of where if you don't get this under control now, it's going to create heart problems and potentially diabetes in your life. What's your diet look like? Well, I'm a youth pastor. I drink pop and eat candy. That's all I do, right? And so that was my life. It was horrible. And I realized in that moment that my pressure was an all-time high and that I was putting so much stress on myself when it needed to be put back on the Lord. And then my resolve was not that high. But you know what I know? Is that God rescued me from that. He rescued Paul from this. And he can rescue you today. Maybe you can relate. Maybe everything on the outside right now looks great in your life, but on the inside you're screaming. You're saying if somebody really knew what was going on, then they would see how I'm really feeling. Maybe right now, even as I'm saying this, you're fighting back tears because you're saying, yeah, that's me. I'm almost broken inside right now. There's hope for you. There's hope for me. And today that's what I want to talk about as we finish. How to live in grace while under pressure. How to live in grace while under pressure. Number one, create a realistic plan for relief. Create a realistic plan for relief. Now, how many of you are planners? Any planners in the room? Who's got the next 5 years planned out? Maybe the next 10 years, 20 years? How many of you have kids and you already have their spouse's names picked out? And if they don't marry that person, then you're like, you can't marry that person because I want that name in my family tree, right? Any crazy planners in the room? I'm a planner. I love to plan. I love to plan for my future. But one thing I do know is that if I make plans and I don't allow God to step in, then I'm missing it. 2 Corinthians 1, 15 through 16 says this, because I was confident of this, I wanted to visit you first so that I may benefit twice. I wanted to visit you on my way to Macedonia and then come back from Macedonia and then have you send me on my way to Judea. Paul had made a plan. He made a plan, but what he realized is that, his plan wasn't the best for that day. It wasn't the best thing to do. He visited them the first time, but then he had to amend his plan. Now, how many of you would say this is hard to do sometimes? To make a plan and then allow it to change? Yeah. Some of you today, though, may need to just start making a plan. You need to create some margin in your life and create a calendar of what this December season is going to look like, this Christmas season for you is going to look like. Maybe you're running all over the place to everyone's houses. Maybe you're having tons of people over all the time. Between holiday parties, with your work, everything here at Timberlake Castle Rock, which is the most important, of course, right? There's so much stuff going on, isn't there? And maybe today you just need to create some margin. Maybe this includes some counseling for you. A lot of you can look, and a lot of myself, my thoughts is we can look at counseling as a crutch. But counseling isn't a crutch. It's actually healthy to do, to go talk to someone else about what's going on in your life. Maybe this will include something like Financial Peace University. If you've never been through that before, I would encourage you to check out Financial Peace University because you have pressures weighing on you and you've never created a plan for your budget, for your finances. And so today, you're drowning. Maybe it'll include an adjustment in your work schedule where you get to work earlier and then come home earlier so you can actually spend time with your family. A few weeks ago with my growth group, I opened up and let them know that I had pressure in my life and pressure on my back. Now, I know I look like I'm in healthy, svelte shape, right, of course. But when I was 16, I was in a really bad car accident. I was a really good running back for my high school football team, and I was really good in the 100 and 200 and the 4x1 relay. And I had college offers, even though I'm not very big. And my team got second state when I was in high school in football my junior year, and I got the ball about 90% of the time. It was awesome. I loved it. After that, though, after December got over, we got to play down at U of O at Autzen Stadium for the championship game. We lost that year. sucked to a team called Marist. And then after that, I took the basketball season off, and I was getting ready for track. And I was going to one of our basketball games with some friends, and I was the back middle seat passenger with no seatbelt on in a car when it was dark, late at night, and we went off a 15-foot embankment going 45 miles an hour when you're supposed to be going 15 miles an hour around this corner. No seatbelt on, tore my back pretty well. And then from then on out until about 2 years ago, I've been in 3 more car accidents where people have rear-ended me. So let me just tell you, my back feels a lot of pressure. If you're 80 in the room, I'm sorry. This does not mean to offend you. I feel like I have the back of an 80-year-old, and I'm not even 30 yet, and it's not good. Now, I have things that I can go through. I have stretches. I have stuff that I can go to do every day of my life, but I haven't been doing them. I haven't been getting up on them because I've been so busy and stressed and so much pressure in my life of keeping up with the schedule every day that I know I'd have to wake up early. Now, how many of you are early risers in the room? Okay. I wish I had that trait where I could get up early. Now, I've developed it in my life now, but how many of you love to wake up at maybe, say, like 8, 9, 10 o'clock? Yes. Isn't that the best? It just is. I'm a night owl. I love being up late, and I love getting up around like 9 or 10. Well, a few weeks ago, I shared this with my growth group, that my back was hurting me and that I needed to create a realistic plan to get it under control. So I've been getting up at like 5 and 5:30 every day for the past few weeks, probably almost 6 weeks now, and really doing these stretches for my back, and it's really helped, and it's been great. Now, why am I telling you this? Because we need to create a realistic plan to get our life under control. Where do you need to create margin in your life today? Paul created a realistic plan for him. He realized, you know what, I could go back and see you guys again. I want to even, but I can't. It's not the best for you, and it's not the best for me. Because here's the catch. Sometimes we need to even cut out some good things in our life. And Paul had to cut out a good thing. We can have so many good things going on. But until we create a realistic plan, the pressures will still get to us and amount and take us over. Number 2, share the load with a select few. Share the load with a select few. Like I mentioned, I shared what was going on with my growth group. If you don't have some people around you, I would highly encourage you to get some people around you in your life. 2 Corinthians 1:18 through 19 says this. It says, "But as surely as God is faithful, our message to you is not yes and no. For among the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who is preached among you by us, by me and Silas and Timothy, was not yes and no, but in him it's always been yes." And did you catch who Paul mentioned there? Silas and Timothy. He had people in his life who were around him, that he traveled with, that he could really confide in. Now, this is hard for me sometimes because I'm strong-willed. How many of you are strong-willed? How many of you have seen this come out in your kids? Isn't that the worst? I have, like I mentioned, an almost 4-year-old, and she does not like to sleep. She does not like to sleep at all. At night, she fights sleeping as long as she possibly can. Gets out of the room, comes back downstairs. "Dad, I have to go to the bathroom." "Okay, we'll go to the bathroom." Come back downstairs in a few minutes. "Dad, this. Dad, can you put my blanket on?" It's usually Mommy, because I get away with it, but it's awesome. But my wife now blames me because I am strong-willed, and now this strong will is coming out in our child, right? And it's so bad. But let me get serious for a moment, though. Who can you share what's going on in your life with? If you're married, when was the last time you opened up to your spouse? When was the last time you were really honest about the good, the bad, and the ugly, what was going on in your life? Maybe if you're not in a growth group, I would encourage you to get involved in a growth group. They're going to be kicking off in a new season this upcoming January, as Pastor Jared's going to be letting you know about when he's back next week. That really, growth groups are so key to really share with someone else in your life what is really going on. Here at Timberlake, you'll hear us say, take your next right step. That's really, how can I grow closer to Jesus today? Maybe your next right step today is to really get involved and to really get involved in a growth group or even tell someone what's really going on. Now, did you hear what I said? Select few. Not everybody. Now, how many of you can say, "Oh, I know that person at work who tells everyone everything," right? I'm not saying go do that, but I'm saying find those people in your life who you can trust. Just like Paul had Silas and Timothy, we need to have people in our life, and that'll help us to really live in grace in times of pressure. Number 3, develop a strong no. Now, this may be your favorite after today. Develop a strong no. 2 Corinthians 1:23 says this, "I call God as my witness, and I stake my life on it, that it was in order to spare you that I did not return to Corinth." Paul had to say no. Let me ask you today, when was the last time you said no? Or are you maybe someone who just says yes to everything? And you're almost to a point of being burnt out because all you do is say yes. Maybe there's volunteers here today who just say yes to everything while a lot of the other people come here and you've never been involved before. Can I say, maybe say yes once in your life if you've never been involved. But if you're doing so much you're about ready to be burnt out, say no every once in a while. It's good and it's healthy. Now Jared's getting mad at me. He said, you're going to take away all my volunteers. No, say no every once in a while. It is good and healthy. Because if we say yes to every single thing, we're never going to have time for ourselves and the things that are really that important. What's interesting is that Paul decided what was most important here. And what's even more interesting is that he like a lot of us, would have wanted to go. See, there was false teachers slandering his name to this church that he had built up. And wouldn't you want to go protect your name? But Paul said, you know what? There's something even more important, and that's taking care of other believers and telling other people about Jesus and even taking care of myself. And so even though this is something that's really good and something that a lot of us would want to jump onto, he said no. Let me ask you during this Christmas season, what's maybe something you need to say no to? Maybe for years you've been allowing someone else to say, hey, we're going to do this or make this or have everyone come over to our house. And you've been wanting to say, no, how about we do something different? How about this year say no to something and change some plans? It may hurt some people's feelings. It may. But create some margin in your life and be healthy. Paul had to say no. And number 4, and then we'll be done, is really give Jesus my full trust. Because here's the reality. If we create a realistic plan, that's good. If we share it with some other people, that's good too. If we say no, that's good. But if we do all that just on our own strength, it's not going to really matter. It's not going to really do that much. Because until we do number 4, really give Jesus my full trust, we're still going to live under that pressure. But this is the way that we get to be alleviated. This is the way that we get to have hope. And this is the way that it changed everything for Paul, is he gave Jesus his full trust. He gave Jesus really his full trust. 2 Corinthians 1:24 says this, not that we lord over your faith, but we work with you for your joy, because it's by faith you stand firm. It's by faith you stand firm. You can underline that if you'd like to. Now you're probably saying, yeah, well, Jeff, this sounds great. This is probably easy for you because you're a pastor to really give Jesus your all every day. But can I tell you that just because I'm a pastor doesn't mean that I'm not a person? And that I understand what it's like to go through this too. That we go through seasons where it's really easy to give Jesus our full trust. And where it sounds really great. But it's something we need to do every single time. See, difficulties and pressures and pressures really come and they cause us to worry. And the more worry, the more pressure, the more stress, the more it beats down on us. And the more it makes us think that we need to get it all under control on our own. But can I say today, whatever you're facing, give it to Jesus. Whatever's going on in this Christmas season, put it back on him. He's the one who wants to take it from you. And I know this is easy to really give lip service to, but to really do it changes everything. If you want different results, you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. You have to change some stuff. What are you going to change today? 1 Peter 5:6-7 says this, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast some of your anxieties, right? Doesn't it just say cast some of your anxieties on him? No, cast all of your anxieties on him. Why? Because he cares for you. You can underline all. We're supposed to cast all of our anxieties, all of our pressures, all of our worries, everything going on in our life on him. Why? Because he cares for you. Give Jesus your full trust in your marriage, in your finances, with your kids, with your job situation. When people are around you being laid off and your boss is acting like a jerk, where's your trust going to lie? When you find out that your family member has cancer, where's your trust going to lie? See, don't dig up and doubt what's been planted in faith. Don't dig up and doubt what's been planted in faith. We need to follow a God of peace, even in a culture of chaos. And let me leave you with this. Giving Jesus your full trust isn't just a one-time thing and then you're done. It's an everyday occurrence that needs to happen, and sometimes multiple times a day. See, it's just like a seed that's grown into a sapling, into a large tree. That there's many seasons that come over the seed's life, right? It goes through summer, and then it goes through then the first frost and winter, and then snow, and then a ton of rain because here in the Northwest. And then it grows up and matures. And we look at these trees and we're like, we have beautiful mature trees around us. But how did they get there? Well, they had to go through times of testing and of trial. And I think for each and every one of us, as we really want to be mature Christians, mature believers in faith, as we go through times of testing and trial, we need to say yes to Jesus being the one who has our full trust over and over and over again. It's not a one time and then you're done. 1 John 5, 4 through 5 says this. For every child of God defeats this evil world. This is good hope for us today. And we achieve this victory through our faith. And who can win this battle against this world? Only those who believe that Jesus is the Son of God. We get to receive victory through him because of faith in Jesus. As we really say, I can't do it on my own anymore. Jesus, I need you today. Come help me in these times of pressures. Come help me in these times where I feel like I am at my wit's end, where I'm stuck. Jesus, come today because I'm giving you my full trust once again. Maybe you're here today and you said, you know what, I've done that before, but I've been relying more on my own strength recently. Or maybe you're here today and you said, you know, I've never done that before, and the pressures and the stress is really eating me inside. And today I've realized, you know what, I don't have to go through it on my own anymore. Wherever you're at, would you pray with me? Jesus, thank you for who you are. God, for being the God of hope, for being the God who really came and paid the price for us so that we could have a new life with you. Jesus, that you came down to this earth, that you loved us that much, that you lived that perfect life and that you died for us on that cross to take away our sins. Everything that we've done, God, that would be against you. And that you rose again to be victorious over those. So when we put our hope and our trust in you, Jesus, that we get to have this changed life. God, would you come during this Christmas season? Would you come right now and really give us a sense of hope? A sense of hope that we maybe haven't felt for a long time. God, that as we really pour out everything that's going on in our own life, the pressures, the stress, God, that you will take them from us. Lord, that this Christmas season will be a season that will be a season of joy and not of despair.